What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be doing Premier League predictions. And I know some of you are going to absolutely cook me for this table. This year, we got new managers, promoted teams trying to survive, some of the most massive transfers we've seen in a long time, and a couple of clubs that I genuinely have no clue what they're about to do. They could cook or absolutely implode. I'm going to go from 20th all the way to the champions, and trust me, once we get to the top six, it's going to be hella controversial. So, screenshot this for later. Come back in May, roast me for my predictions. Let's see how badly I'm going to get this wrong. I'm starting with Hull City in 20th. And I think this is just the biggest jump in quality any team has to deal with. They came up through the championship playoffs rather than actually winning the league. And even though they have a pretty decent squad and have been really active in the transfer market, I don't know how they will pair to the rest of the Prem. And realistically, where are these points going to come from? Hidemasa Morita is a great signing. I really like this signing. And he brings an experience. He's super calm in the midfield, controls the tempo. They brought in people like Matt Target, Jack Butland, so they understand what it means to have Premier League experience. But realistically, over 38 games, that quality gap is going to catch up to them. And I think they will be the first to be relegated. And 19th, I've got Coventry. And honestly, I don't think it's because they don't have a good team. They actually have a very good team. And they didn't just sneak into the Prem, they won the championship with 95 points. They earned this. And Frank Lampard deserves credit because Coventry were actually very good last year. They brought in players like Aurel Amenda and Frank Onyeka, and this gives them a little bit more of that Premier League athleticism and physicality because the Prem is one of the most physical leagues in the world. And I think that these signings help them with that. But my issue is whether that championship dominance translates to week in, week out in the Prem. Does that translate when you're versing Arsenal, City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United every other week? I think they'll fight, and I think they'll have moments where everyone says, wait, Coventry might stay up. But ultimately, I have them falling just short because they just lack that X factor that keeps a team in the Prem. And my final relegated team is Ipswich. This is probably the one promoted team I'm most conflicted about because I really like Ipswich and what they've done. Daisen Maeda gives them a ridiculous amount of energy that they did not have in their midfield. They've added Premier League experience with people like Lisa Diop and Sasek Lucic. And I think this is clearly a team that can attack quickly and punish teams in transition. The only downside from my end, personally, is Gary O'Neill. He's been in relegation battles galore, but he's not a Oliver Glasner or he's not Sam Allardyce that literally can keep clubs in there. Gary O'Neill has struggled, and personally, I think that might be the downfall of Ipswich. When I compare them to other teams, they are just above, and I think they just fall a few points short. Honestly, come May, they could do incredible, or they could just survive and I look dumb. And I'm really hoping they do because I love what Ipswich are doing. But for now, I have them 18. Okay, I'm looking at this on paper right now, and I'm kind of thinking to change this, but I'm gonna stick with my guns. Crystal Palace in 17th. And I know you guys are already typing how stupid I am, but just hear me out. You got a new manager in Pierre Sage. You're coming off a period where Oliver Glasner brought in some of this club's most important and most best recent moments. And now the expectations are completely different. They've made some interesting moves. Tamiyasu comes in. If he's healthy, he's incredible. He's very smart, very intelligent, very versatile of a defender. But the issue is if he stays healthy. I just don't know if Palace are in a position where they're going to be able to do what they did with Glasner, but I also don't think they're bad enough to go down. It's just one of those weird transition seasons because they're going to be hovering around that 14th to 17th spot. And realistically, I think they're going to struggle for consistency. Not to mention, they're also in Europe. So I think those games will definitely cause some impact for them. Also, make it really difficult for them to balance with their squad. And bringing in players like Tomiyasu, where they're injury prone, I'm not sure if that's the right. 16th, I've got Leeds. And I actually think this is more positive than it sounds. Objective is simple establish yourself in the Prem. They brought in Harry Wilson, who gives them something they badly need, which is Premier League proven creativity and end product. And he's someone who can take a set piece, he can create a chance out of nothing, and he gives you those random goals that will literally get them draws. And honestly, some of those draws into wins, and I think they can sneak in a lot of victories this way. And then what I personally feel like is one of the best signings of this window, James Trafford. I think he is incredible. I don't think Leeds are at that level to push for Europe, but I don't think they're going to be spending their entire season fighting relegation like they did last season. James Trafford, an amazing signing. He was Man City's number one until Donnarumma came available last season. So if Man City wanted you, you have talent, and I think he will do the business that needs to be done for Leeds. Okay, very controversial because I think most people have this team going down, but I have them 15th. Fulham. I think Fulham are one of the biggest question marks. Marco Silva's gone, and we've lost some important players. You have Arbeloa coming in, who this is really his big job, his first job. Madrid wasn't really his real big job, and he could look like a genius, or honestly, by December he could be fired, and I might be looking back at this like a bad decision. But he's made some great signings, and this again might be the Madrid bias on my end. I feel like Arbeloa is a good coach. I feel like the signing of Gonzalo Garcia is very good. He's a striker. Real Madrid lacked a striker, and he was that. He gives them something fresh up top, and there's definitely an upside there. I just I'm putting my faith in Fulham, but I could easily see them being in the fight for relegation if things don't work how Arbeloa wants it to. Sunderland 14th. And before anyone says I'm disrespecting them, they finished 7th last season as a newly promoted team. I know. It was ridiculous. But that's also why I expect regression. Nobody expected Sunderland, promoted team, to finish in the top 10, let alone 7th. And now you got Europa League football because of that. I just don't know if Sunderland have what it takes in terms of rotation to allow these players to be fully rested and be able to compete with a league like the Prem. Thomas Meunier brings in experience, and keeping Reggie Labrie is huge. But Thursday to Sunday football is completely different. I think Sunderland are like comfortably safe, but I just don't know if they can be 7th again. They're going to be a Premier League stay, but again, I don't think they're going to be finishing in the top 10. I got Nottingham Forest in 13th, and I honestly think they'll do a lot better than last season. And the main reason, Oliver Glasner. I like him. I think he did amazing for Crystal Palace, and one of the biggest mistakes of their season and why I think they're going to struggle is because he's here. He plays with three center backs, athletic wing backs, and quick transitions, and Forest already have the pieces for that. And then you go and sign Usman Diomande, who's athletic, aggressive, and comfortable. And also, they brought in Manzambi, who is incredible. We saw in that World Cup, he was a star. And I'm glad that they were able to bring him in. Also, they did lose Elliot Anderson, which is a massive blow. But this feels like a team that should stabilize rather than spend the entire season looking over their shoulder. Bournemouth, 12th. And this is less about me thinking Bournemouth suddenly suck and more about a lot of things changing at once. Iraola's gone. Marco Rose comes in. You got European football. And now you have to prove that Bournemouth's success wasn't built around one manager. I like the signing of Antonio Silva. That's exactly the type of signing Bournemouth have been really good at making. High upside, technically strong, potentially worth way more in 2 years. I still think they're a good football team. I just expect Europe and the managerial transition to cost them a few league positions. At 11th, best of the rest for the mid table, I have Everton. And honestly, they might be my favorite mid table teams. David Moyes gives you stability. He loves Everton. He's literally Everton's guy. They've added Brennan Johnson, who personally I am a big fan. And I think he's exactly the type of player that Everton needs. Actual pace in the wide areas and not just someone who can carry the ball like Jack Grealish. This is a good signing for them to have that pace that they've really been missing. They've also brought in Hayden Hackney and Christian Norgard. That midfield is becoming a bit more solid. But again, this isn't a Champions League winning team. Everton have spent so many years in the conversation of are they about to go down? I think that this year they're finally boring in the best possible way. They're solid, they're competitive, and they're meant for the mid table. 10th, Newcastle. This club basically hit a big factory reset button. New manager, Bruno Guimaraes gone, Tonali gone, Anthony Gordon gone. That's an insane amount of talent to lose from one midfield and attack. Matthias Jesus is interesting, and Toure has a massive upside. This honestly feels like a year where they need to rebuild, and rather than them jumping back into the Champions League. Hopefully, this manager is better than what Eddie Howe was doing. Newcastle were great, but I feel like they've outgrown Eddie Howe's tactics. So let's see if this new manager can change that. They'll still destroy somebody 4-0 at St. James Park, and suddenly everyone will think they're back. But over the course of 38 games, I think the focus for Newcastle is just to be consistent rather than try to push to be back in the Champions League. Brentford ninth. This team just refuses to go away, man. Every year, someone predicts the fall off of Brentford, and then the next year, and then the next year, but they're literally here, man. And their biggest reason? Igor Thiago. 22 Premier League goals last season, and if you got a striker scoring 20 plus goals, you're good. You're gonna literally be in the top half of the Prem, even if you win every game 1-0. That's literally what you need from this striker. Also, Keith Andrews getting another year, no European distractions, and Brentford are just comfortable knowing what they're good at, which is just staying in the league. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they pushed for Europe because this team is ideal, well run, well managed. This club is amazing, and I honestly could see them sneaking into a seventh place. Spurs eighth. This is where things are going to start to get a little interesting. Last season they were 17th. 17th, bro. And the year before that, they were also in that position. But this year, I don't know. I feel like there could be some good shift. Spurs. Roberto De Zerbi, very good signing. Brought in Sandro Tonali, Mateus Fernandez, Jan Paul Van Heck, Andy Robertson. A lot of change, and sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not. I feel like a lot of new signings, if they weren't all Prem proven, would be difficult. But these guys have played here before, so they understand how the Premier League works. One of the best signings, I think, is Tonali, but maybe not for Spurs. He will transform that midfield, and he gives them aggression, control, and actual presence in that midfield. Hopefully, if he stays fit. I think Spurs are one of the bigger risers in the league. I just don't know if they're ready to go from 17th to Champions League football. So it's going to be a very good rebuild year for them. I just don't know what the relationship between Spurs and De Zerbi is going to be. He's a very explosive manager, so I'm hoping the best for them, but I'll keep an eye out on them. I've got Brighton in seventh because at this point, why would I bet against Brighton figuring things out? They lose players every year. Everyone surely says that this is the summer where it catches up to them. Then they sign some 20-year-old who we never heard of, and he's worth 80 million. This year, that's Luka Vuskovic, another perfect Brighton signing. Young, massive upside, a ball playing center back that fits what they do. They lost experience with Danny Welbeck, James Milner, but the squad is talented, and we've seen them sign young players before and it working out. Hertzler now has another Premier League to go through, and he has another year of experience behind him. This team is amazing. I think they're going to do great things. I think they just sneak into Europe. Sixth, Aston Villa. Honestly, I could see Villa finishing anywhere between fourth and eighth. As long as Unai Emery is there, I trust it. They lost a lot though, and I know that's why people will be keeping them in the bottom half, potentially 10th and lower. Morgan Rogers is gone. Tielemans is gone. Digne is gone. And they brought in Alejandro Gernot, who, if there's anyone in the world that can probably revitalize his career, it's got to be Unai Emery. He made Jadon Sancho into a decent player. I, and he did it for Rashford as well, even Marco Asensio. If there's one last saving grace for Alejandro Garnacho, it is Unai Emery. He is good though. Remember, he gives them pace, unpredictability on and off the pitch, but they're replacing a lot of established production. You got Champions League football to think about as well. So Villa are good. I just think that the loss of the extreme talent, especially Morgan Rogers, is going to be big for them. I think they'll finish just outside the top four, but I think they still have enough, and Unai Emery has enough to take this team to where they are. I just don't know if they'll be doing the same thing last year, given the loss of talent this year. All right, now we're getting into the top five. Liverpool fifth. Yes, I know Liverpool fans will be like, "No, we're winning the Prem. We got this." But simply, Mohamed Salah's gone. You don't just replace that. You just don't go and sign any Zach uh, Ekitike and think that that's replaceable. You don't just take out 20 plus goals and assists and just think that another player can replace it. But more than that, the leadership. One of the greatest Premier League players of all time, maybe the greatest Premier League winner of all time. You don't just replace that. That's leadership in the locker room you can't get. And honestly, I think that Liverpool have made good strides. The appointment of Iraola, we've seen what he did with Bournemouth. I think systematically it makes sense. Stylistically, it makes sense. Fast, aggressive, pressing, direct. And honestly, people have been trolling him, but Araujo, I think he has defensive quality. We saw in the first friendly games that Van Dijk was able to help him understand how to defend. I'm not saying that he needs to learn again, but I think he just needs someone who can restore that confidence in him. And I wouldn't be doubtful that Van Dijk is that guy. I think Liverpool will be good, but they're changing the manager, defensive structure, and it does take time for those tactics to take effect. And I know Iraola will be given the chance, unlike Xabi Alonso at Real Madrid, but I think Liverpool are going in the right direction. I just don't think that they're at that point to win the league immediately. Okay, this one's gonna make people angry. I got Man City fourth, and no, I don't think Man City are finished. They got Holland, Foden. They have talent. You have to understand you're replacing Pep Guardiola. That's not just a manager. That's a whole systematic operation. Like you're getting rid of so many things that Pep did, but you're also getting rid of a lot of his players. Bernardo Silva, Stones, Ake, Akanji, and now officially confirmed Rodri. Yeah, I'm still upset about that. Anyways, but they did do what they needed to do to replace those players. They brought in Elliot Anderson on huge money, Buati, huge money. But I just don't know if spending those big amounts of money will fix anything. They did that last year, and Pep wasn't able to catch up to Arsenal. It was close, but I just don't know. But like, we're comparing Pep to Enzo Maresca. Not saying that Enzo Maresca isn't a good coach. I just don't know if he has that level of precedence that Pep carries. I feel like this is the first City season in forever where it feels like a lot of unknowns at the club. They could still win it, of course, but being fourth wouldn't really shock me. So I have them in fourth. I think they'll still make Europe. They're still a well-run club. Pep laid a lot of foundations for them. I just think they will take a year or two to kind of get back to where they want to. And maybe Enzo Maresca can do that. I have Chelsea third. This might age horribly. I'm gonna buy into the Chelsea pick this year. Biggest reason, Xabi Alonso. If you've seen my other videos, you know how I feel about him. You know the glaze factor here for Xabi Alonso is 24/7 running. Not just that, I think he is all elite coaching appointment. You look at the squad: Morgan Rogers, Wenda, Lacroix, Palestro. These are very good signings. Biggest point: they have no Europe. Everyone else is flying around Europe every Tuesday, Wednesday. Xavi gets to spend that week in the training grounds with his team. Morgan Rogers, I'm excited. Under Xavi Alonso, a proper technician, I'm really excited to see what he can take out of that player. Powerful, direct, creative. He can carry the ball. He can score. If Alonso puts this team together, Chelsea could go from 10th to being the biggest surprise in Europe. I have them finishing third. Now down to our last two: Arsenal, Manchester United. This was maybe 15 years ago. It'd be a pretty normal conversation. Maybe not for Arsenal, but United for sure. But different times now. I have United going second. I can already hear it. United are back. United are back. Everyone says it every single year, but I think I might be buying into it this time. Michael Carrick took over last season. United went on like genuine title winning form. It wasn't 5 games. It was proper sample size. It was like 17 games. And now the signings of Yuri Tillemans, Andre Santos, I think that midfield has gotten some of the players that it needs. Still feel like it's missing a few. Check out my last video. But Bruno Fernandez coming off absurd season, 21 assists. It's crazy. And the biggest difference for the first time in a while, this feels like United's not just buying random players and hoping that something happens. The squad makes tactical sense. I don't think that they're ready to be champions right now, but they're in the conversation. And we saw last season that they can make nothing into something. And we saw right away that they were playing incredible football. So I'm hoping Kerry can continue that on. And I hope that United can live up to that hype. And my Premier League champions of 2026 2027 are Arsenal. The defending champions, I think they'll go back to back. They're honestly the most settled, most elite team in the league currently. Mikel Arteta is there, the core is still there, and they just added Bruno Guimaraes. Honestly, kind of unfair. And you have Rice, you have Odegaard, Zubamendi, and now Bruno. Honestly, I waited for the Community Shield to kind of just see what the levels would be between City and Arsenal. And 3-0, it was miles apart. Arsenal are going to be on a different level. That midfield is going to control games, win every other ball, press, create, slow the game down, speed it up. They're going to be running the show. But the question isn't ability anymore. The question is whether they can handle being the team that everyone is chasing. We've made fun of them for being bottlers, but now they're going to be having the target on their back from day one. Compared to City changing managers, Liverpool losing Salah, Chelsea being Chelsea, and United now returning into into the Champions League. Arsenal have the fewest questions. They don't have a lot to answer. Arsenal are my champions. They don't have much to prove. They've already done it once. They can do it again. So that's my table. Hull, Coventry, Ipswich going down. Chelsea jumping all the way to third. City dropping to fourth. United second. Arsenal going back to back. I know one of these is going to be terrible prediction. And by Christmas, I'm going to look like a literal dumbass. So tell me, what's my worst prediction on this list? What do you disagree with? What makes you go, yeah, this guy is a complete dumbass? But what is my best take? And what do you agree with? Tell me down below what your thoughts are on this Premier League season. Like and subscribe. We got more to go.